Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Special Forces Team X. Well, this is a game by Zombie Studios, the guys that brought you a Blacklight Retribution, as well as, of course, the not-so-good Blacklight Tango Down. Now, the success of their free-to-play game has led them not to make this one free-to-play, because, let's be honest, who the hell would want to compete with their own product, right? Doesn't really seem like a very good idea. So what they've done is they've created a $15 third-person shooter. It's cover-based, for the most part, which is fairly unusual on PC. I mean, obviously we have Gears of War on the console toys. However, on PC, we don't really have a huge number of third-person cover-based shooters, especially ones that are designed around killing each other rather than killing stuff that the computer throws at you. I'm thinking about Mass Effect 3 there, of course. And the only two examples I can really come up with off the top of my head would be this one and, of course, Spec Ops: The Line, which had very much a tacked-on multiplayer mode. Question is this any good? Well, we'll go and have a look at the options menu first. This was released on 360 as well, so it's always worth looking at the options menu to make sure that everything is in order. Would appear that it is, for the most part. You can turn motion blur off, thank God. As you can see, pretty much every option you could really need is there. It is an Unreal Engine game. It's not exactly a high graphically fidelity... That's not even a real sentence. Let's try that one again. A high graphical fidelity title either. So you should be okay. What is missing, of course, is an FOV slider. This is a third-person game, so less people are bothered by the restrictive FOV than would be in a first-person game, but it would be nice to have anyway. I have a feeling their excuse for that probably involves the way that the camera sticks to you when you attach yourself to a piece of cover, but regardless, it would, once again, be nice to actually have that. Controls, yeah, you can ignore those and go straight to key bindings. These are all fully rebindable, as you can pretty clearly see. Alright, let's get into the game, but before we do that, we're going to have a quick look at the actual customization. You can do some cosmetic stuff, not a huge amount, but little bits here and there. As you can see, I can switch over to that vest, I could change my trousers. A lot of this stuff is unlockable, as you might imagine. And it goes all the way up to, I think, level 40, as far as I can tell. Even the taunts are unlockable in a fairly standard way. Although, yeah, physics, but no, that doesn't... This is not good, Zombie. I think this might be worth fixing. Jeez. Oh, Lord, what on earth is going on with that? That's pretty bad. I hadn't actually seen that before. Aside from that, yeah, you've got that customization. You also have skills. You have one passive skill and one active skill. These can be activated, I think, once per life, as far as I can tell. This one will actually buff anyone that's currently in the vicinity of you and counted as part of your active team. I'll explain that mechanic once we get into the game. Toughness, same kind of thing, but something different. And do all of that kind of stuff. Resilience, all of this stuff is passive. So you can get a bunch of nice stuff. This is horrible and shouldn't be there. Good Lord. It's another version of Martyr. What a terrible idea. Alright, customization-wise, you've got some guns, quite a reasonable number, honestly, as you can see. You start off with one of two kinds of AKs, or alternatively, what appears to be some kind of Russian machine gun. You can also unlock sniper rifles, other rifles, SMGs, and stuff like that, going all the way down to the M4 bolt action at level 40. Now, in the standard zombie style, they have done reasonable comparisons between the guns. You note over to the right there the direct comparisons that are going on, so that's actually very, very helpful. Seems to be their philosophy that they want to show all of the numbers outright in all of their games, which I very much think is a good idea. You can also customize your gun, assuming you actually have the levels for it. I haven't. Leveling in this game seems to be fairly slow, hampered by the fact that there seems to be a bug which is resetting a lot of people's levels, which is really not a good thing at all. You can add sights. These do have an effect, even though it is actually a third-person shooter, although nowhere near as ridiculous as you would expect in an FPS. Of course, you can add a silencer, different kinds of silencers. I'm pretty sure that they're, for the most part, the same. You just happen to get a nicer-looking gun. Same with the pistols here. There's actually two pistols, and then there's two shotguns. That one kind of looks fun. At least it would... What's going on with the clipping of the models? Good Lord. That is pretty dreadful. That has got to be resolved, because that is just an absolute joke. Good Lord. And then you can pick gear. In this case, I have an assault dog. You can also have an attack dog, which is a little bit different. And you can grab a frag grenade as well as a bunch of other stuff. There's also some pickups that you can get in-game, which are a little bit more outlandish. All right, let's find a game, shall we, and check out what's going on. There's 5 game modes. They're pretty much self-explanatory. Hot Zone, I believe, is just domination. There's Capture the Flag. There is Team Deathmatch. I actually have no idea what that is. And there's High Value Target. A high-value target is a case of someone ends up being a high-value target, and you've got to protect them because they are worth a lot more points when they get killed. Go jump into a standard TDM match, I think. Sounds like a pretty decent idea. And then we'll get started and show you exactly what's going on. Alright, here we go. So, just straight into the match here. The first thing you'll probably notice is that it's got this interesting cel-shaded look to it, which is kind of surprising. And I think if a lot of people were to look at the Steam page, the first thing you think is, oh, it's kind of standard modern military shooter nonsense. It really isn't. It does use modern weapons and, of course, covers tactics and things like that, but for the most part, the game does actually appear to be somewhat tongue-in-cheek, mostly because of the taunting and the chainsaws and the minigun and things like that, which are all available in pickups, and hopefully I'll actually find one of those in my play session, but, of course, nothing is guaranteed. Now, what I'm also looking to try and do here is actually find my team, because there is a mechanic called the Teamwork bonus, and the purpose of the teamwork bonus is to give you a bonus for teamwork, funnily enough. Yeah, I know, it's a shocker, isn't it? Yeah, you can sit down, thank you very much. So if you happen to be within range of your teammates for a certain period of time, it will actually set up a temporary team for you, and it will give you the number down at the bottom there. You'll notice that there's a team-up bonus. There we go. It's just kicked in. And that gives you an experience bonus depending on how many people are there. It also affects how many people gain the benefit from popping your skill. Now, the skill in question you saw in the loadout menu. In my case, they get bonus to accuracy, which is really kind of neat. Unfortunately, my team seems to have run off. Oh, there's someone. I'm going to stick around with him. Some people don't really seem to understand just how useful the team bonus actually is. They prefer to just run off on their own, which generally gets them killed. Usually not a very good idea. The game itself, being a third-person cover shooter, it means that you're extremely vulnerable to being flanked, and indeed that is the most effective way of dealing with anyone, is to come around the side where they can't see you because of the limited field of view, and then shoot them. And that guy has a minigun, and I was hoping to kill him before he killed me, but that simply was not going to happen, good lord. As I was saying about some of these crazy pickup weapons, that's one very good example. Alright. Let's get back into the fight, shall we? Now, I believe you can spawn on your teammates, far as I can tell. I think you, however, have to cycle through to one of your teammates and then hit spawn here. You just saw someone there just spawn behind one of our teammates, so I guess that works. There's one of the pickup weapons. Let's see what he's going to get. A grenade launcher by the looks of it. Last time I tried that, it was a little bit tricky to use. Hopefully he doesn't blow up his entire team with it. I like the team-based mechanic, the whole teamwork experience thing, simply because it does encourage you to work together and hopefully cover each other's angles. Now, as to whether or not that actually happens, well, that really depends on who's in your actual game, which can be really problematic. I think it's one of the reasons why third-person shooters don't really work out so well in multiplayer when they're based on cover, because you really have to cover each other's flanks. You cannot see where everybody's coming from. You can be very easily flanked and killed before you can get a chance to do anything, so you need to work as a team in order to survive. And this was their best effort at allowing it to do that, but it lacks a lot of other stuff, like the ability to directly communicate with your team via voice macros, for instance. That would be hugely useful, and there doesn't appear to be any way to do that whatsoever. Of course, there's Steam voice chat, but most people don't have that turned on. I don't even know if it even works in this game directly, so it's not exactly ideal. They don't really give you a lot of tools to work as a team, even though they encourage you to do so and reward you for doing so. Now, I think the best scenario you're going to have is when you jump onto a server with a couple of friends who are already on existing VoIP, and you're going to have a whale of a time because you'll be way, way better than everybody else. Now, another unique feature of this game is the ability to put your map together from a set of pieces. As you can see, there are apparently 9 different pieces available for each of these 3 sections, which gives a reasonable number of combinations. And that means that the maps are, I wouldn't say they're different every time, but they're pretty damn close. So people tend to vote for whatever, and then you will get that. So there you can see the various different pieces available. So if I wanted water treatment, irrigation, then water treatment, I could do that. Now, this is an interesting little system because it means that learning the maps is less useful than it would be in other games. So you're not going to have someone that knows the map inside out going around and dominating because there's just so many different combinations. It also just keeps things fresh, which I very much like. I'd like to see that in more games where suitable. So I've never really played on a map that's been the same as any other map thus far. Alright, here we go. Am I red? They spawned that guy in a really horrible place. Good lord. Why would they do that? This definitely seems to be a problem with the spawning system. There's no way in a team deathmatch it should have spawned one of the enemy guys there. Maybe he flipped team at the last moment and it kept him on that team. I guess that's what's happening. Those wondering why I'm not shooting the red guys, that's actually my team. It decides that the color scheme should be based on the team color rather than enemy or friendly. So that's just how it is. Whoa, this is going to get ugly. Looks like there's some silly melee stuff going on here. What the hell? How did he not die? Please don't tell me there's a bunch of immunity while you're doing melee stabs, because that would be absolutely dreadful. That's weird. That should not have happened. I'm alone again. I don't like this. I have, of course, my trusty attack dog that I can use. You can also blind fire around corners, which is extremely useful in certain circumstances. You'd be surprised at how accurate it can be if you just fire 1 or 2 bullets at once. The guns themselves feel pretty good for a third-person shooter. Decent sound assets, decent amount of kick. You got a pulse fire for the most part, but you can blaze away full auto if you want to run and gun. It's just probably going to get you horribly killed. I'm going to head in the direction of my team. I really need support. Also, you know, being on a team and getting my team bonus would be absolutely wonderful, and then I could start to benefit them. I'm going to send my dog out. Here you go find something. Nope, it's not going to go find something. Oh well. Dogs are nice little effective tools. Pretty good for finding out where the enemy actually is, as well as hopefully doing a big chunk of damage to them. They do like 600 damage when they bite, so that's fairly significant. The game also has, as you probably noticed, damage numbers. And once again, that does somewhat fit with the philosophy of Zombie, in that Zombie really wants all of the numbers to be out there. And if you put all the numbers out there they feel, then people don't think that the game is unfair, which is kind of a cool idea. Someone just got... Oh, he's over there. Okay. Go on, doggy. Go down. Oh, there's one up there, too. That's not so good. He's running. He's running. Where'd he go? Oh, this is not good. I don't even know where he went. Oh, he's down there. Okay. It's like I can't actually shoot him through the chain link fence, unfortunate. Still got a guy up there. Maybe I can grenade him. Oh, ha, ha, satisfying. Yes, indeed. In terms of just being a straight-up shooter, the game is definitely not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually pretty fun. It's fast, and yet it is, to some degree, tactical because of the use of cover. I haven't played a huge number of cover-based shooters, and I'd never played Gears of War in multiplayer, so it's hard for me to really say whether or not this is a better game or whatever, but I am definitely having fun with it. Although there are certain rounds where your team just flat out doesn't work together and you end up getting flanked and horribly destroyed, which is never all that enjoyable. There are also some wonky areas where you spawn and then get shot a couple of seconds later. I believe there are immunity frames when you spawn, so you're not going to get killed instantly, but you can still get horrendously murdered. Some of the game modes don't really seem to work as well. The capture the flag mode in a cover-based shooter sounds like a great idea until you realize everyone just kind of camps around cover, and actually getting them to move is pretty tricky. There doesn't seem to be an incentive for them to really do that. They're not concerned about winning the game, they're concerned about farming experience, because, you know, modern gamers are goddamn idiots. Alright, this is not a good place to be. At least I've got a team bonus going on. Maybe I can roll over here and take cover. There are definitely some tense moments in the game when you're rolling from cover to cover and actually advancing. And when the team works together and advances from cover to cover in that sort of 2x2 formation, it feels brilliant. It really, really does. And pretty much any game that allows you to do that generally feels pretty awesome. You feel way more tactical than you otherwise would in, say, an FPS. So you just don't have those kind of options in an FPS. But even then, those moments are not necessarily going to happen to you all the time. And more often than not, you'll end up in situations where you just get horribly screwed over. just because your team was a bunch of blundering idiots. Thankfully, these guys know what they're doing. You can see I'm actually clipping through this other guy's model, which I think we just got flanked, didn't we? Ooh, this is not looking good. Oh, yeah, this is looking absolutely dreadful. I tried my best, but, yeah. Those guys were smart. They were able to make their way around and flank us. So what problems does the game have? Well, aside from the obvious clipping issues that I've shown you, and apparent bugs in regards to spawning and the possibility of experience reset, which is goddamn awful and definitely needs to be resolved. What I would... Oh, what the hell just... Wow, that was quick. Holy crap. I would say there's a lot of downtime between matches, unnecessarily so. Like, that match maybe lasted 10 minutes, maybe... Oh, it must have been less than that, actually, I think. And as a result, you get about a minute of downtime between every, like, 8 or 9 minute match, which is pretty stupid. They give you 30 seconds to change your loadout, and then they give you 30 more seconds to actually vote. In fact, it's more than that. It's 40 seconds here, and then 30 seconds to vote for the different parts of the map. It's really not that necessary, because honestly, you don't get enough gear to really justify having to go back in here. I mean, I just hit level 3, and I didn't really get anything, but as you can see, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, you know, it's basically a new gun every 3 or so levels. You don't need that amount of time. If people want to screw around, then, you know, just let them do that, but don't force them to sit in a lobby for 70 seconds in between matches, especially when your matches are really, really short. Again, that's not a very good idea. I think I'd also have liked to have seen just a little bit more crazy in the general loadout stuff. Now, you can get crazy when you get supply drop stuff like the minigun, stuff like the rocket launcher, there's a high-powered sniper rifle, and then there's stuff like the chainsaw, which is super fun, and all sorts of things like that. It actually looks like voting's about 40 seconds as well, so 80 seconds of downtime between... And it's just unnecessary. And we don't need 40 seconds to decide here. Most people don't even care anyway. They just want a randomly generated map and they want to go. So I think this time should be really reduced, honestly. But on the loadout side of things, I would like to see a little bit more silliness. It felt like they just didn't quite go far enough. They didn't know how far they wanted to go towards being a bit of a crazy game and just out there for pure fun, and also melding it with the idea that you're sort of playing special forces and doing some fairly tactical cover-based play. It's a weird juxtaposition, and I think it's resulted in the game kind of getting neutered in terms of how crazy they wanted to make it, which is a crying shame. You know, I'm always up for outlandish, wacky stuff, especially, you know, if you're going to make a sort of cartoony shooter with some interesting elements like chainsaws and miniguns, then, you know, you'd best at least consider some interesting stuff for the loadouts. As it stands, there really aren't all that many. It also seems like it takes a ton of time to unlock some of the stuff. Alright, let's grab ourselves a weapon. Okay, we're gonna get a grenade launcher. Alright, sweet. Let's try not to die, then. Oh, he's friendly. No, he's not. He's not friendly at all. What am I talking about? This grenade launcher seems to have some fairly limited range. I'm not that impressed by it. I've only got 2 shots left on the bloody thing as well. That's not so good. I'll make a run for it. Try and slide into cover here. Hello. There you go, you can have one of them. Sweet. Well, at least I made use of the bloody thing. And then I'm going to start to flank around because I know their position, so... There's definitely a possibility of doing some pretty serious damage here. There we go. Pulse firing is perhaps the most effective way of dealing with it. And aside from the things that I've listed, and there's not really a huge amount wrong with it. I think some people might argue that there's probably not enough content to justify purchase. And it isn't a free-to-play game. You do have to pay $15 or £12 for this thing. 15 euros as well, because dollar equals euro in Steam's weird world. It really depends on what you think is the best value. I mean, it's certainly not got a shortage of maps, thanks to its modular map generation system. It does have a reasonable amount of unlockable content. Admittedly, some of that content seems to take bloody forever to unlock. Level progress is not quick. And you're looking at getting like level 15 plus to get stuff like good silencers and everything for your guns, which is not ideal. There we go. Very, very nice. But I do like stuff like the teamwork bonus, and when everything gels together and when the stars align, you end up having this just great game. that's a lot of fun to play with friends or just random guys, as long as they all kind of get the idea of how they're supposed to play it. The problem is when they don't, and when it just becomes a disorganized mess, and at that point it's just a weak deathmatch game, which is extremely unfortunate. Thankfully, it is a game that you can play with your friends. It even has a LAN mode available, so this may very well be something that LAN party guys really want to actually get a hold of. Alright, grenade. Oh, he sent a grenade my way too. Okay. It's alright. Dealt with him. Have I got another grenade left? I do. Let's make sure I'm reloaded. But it's solid. It's... there are the occasional moments in this game that make me go, oh, wow, that was incredible. That was really, really awesome. And then there are the moments where it's like, you just get shot from some kind of weird, wonky angle whereby, for some reason, they're able to move just to the right pixel where they can shoot you from behind perfect cover and you can't do a damn thing to them. Which is always a problem. There we go. Don't know what the hell that guy thought he was doing. Alright. Let's get around the side. Okay, so there's someone around there. Hello. Somehow he managed to get the drop on me, but hey, there you go. Never mind. It's got its moments, and it's not exactly expensive. It is, for the most part, what I consider to be cheap and cheerful. That was not quite what I had in mind. I don't know what the hell that was all about. Good lord. It has some pretty funny moments. It has some pretty awesome moments. But it is somewhat buggy, as I've described earlier, and for some people this might seem highly generic, and they wouldn't necessarily be wrong. Just because it happens to have cartoony graphics, attack dogs, and the occasional minigun, doesn't mean that the rest of the game isn't fairly generic, but honestly, you don't get a lot of games like this on the PC. I think one I would add to the list of ones that I listed earlier would probably be... oh, God! Shouldn't have really been focusing on that, should I? Would probably be Ghost Recon Future Soldier. That's pretty similar, as far as I can tell. But even then, there's not a lot of choice when it comes to cover-based deathmatch shooters. That match, I think, took less than 5 minutes. Good lord. That's what I'm talking about. That's how quick it is. There are still a lot of problems I think they need to iron out, and a lot of them might seem minor, but they all kind of stack up into being something which holds the game back, and the downtime is just hugely frustrating. So I'm hoping they can deal with that. Aside from that, though, Special Forces Team X is a pretty decent, competitive third-person shooter. And as I said, it has its moments, and it's not exactly expensive. We're talking $15 or £12. I believe it's either 14 or 15 euros. If you happen to be in Tier 2 of Europe, it's actually more like 11, so that's pretty good. Not bad. Could use some polish. My name's TotalBiscuit. Take a look here at Special Forces Team X. And I'll see you next time.